Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Armchair Athletes live stream. Welcome to a stream I've been looking forward to for a while. Holy hoarse voice, I'm so sorry. A stream I've been looking forward to for a while. This is the Fantasy Quarterback Tier Rankings video. We're going over the performance in 2022 and who we believe in the most to the least going into 2023. Let's do a little intro real quick. My name is Corey. This is Armchair Athletes. If you're a recent follower, thank you so much. This is where I do plenty of fantasy analyses, case studies, and of course, I answer all of your fantasy football questions in the comments section below. Again, apologies for the voice crack. Hopefully that's the last time that happens. Thought I had enough water before this stream. But nonetheless, obviously, we are in Week 18, and if you do any fantasy football stuff into the NFL playoffs as well, throughout these streams, I have one rule. Ask any questions you possibly have in that comment section, and I will gladly answer as thoroughly and as most complete as I possibly can. Before we get going, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, as we are ranking these fantasy quarterbacks right now in terms of how I would draft them going into 2023, and I have plenty of reasoning behind each and every one. And of course, if you are confident in your sports research, make sure that you join Underdog Fantasy by hitting the link that we have in the description. Use promo code Corey0410 to get your deposit matched dollar for dollar up to $100. Underdog is a phenomenal app. It lets you guess overs and unders. We're going to be doing some best ball drafts, which I am super excited about. If you guys don't know what best ball drafts are, we'll probably have an explanation video on that. But in a nutshell, they are fantasy football leagues where you don't have to worry about benching somebody who ended up getting more points. You have a set of players, and the best scorers each and every week, those are the ones who count for you. They weed you down really quickly. They try and do cream of the crop style, where they just take the best teams, move you on through a tournament style play, and you can win a lot of money. So we'll be doing some things for that. Another reason you should join Underdog Fantasy, you can get up to $100 free if you put $100 in. So you can start doing those best ball drafts with us. That should be really fun. Obviously, be smart with your money. I understand that gambling addiction is very serious. I personally set aside a small amount of money for the month and don't go beyond it. Also, folks, you've got to make sure that you check out the Start 2 Sit 1 YouTube short series that we have going on. We did quarterbacks and running backs already today, and before kickoff tomorrow, we will have wide receivers and tight ends. So 2 players at the position that I believe you should start, 1 you should sit. This will be the final version of that series because I do think it's a subjective series. If you're in a 12-team league and I'm telling you, if you're in a 16-team league and I'm telling you to bench James Conner, it's not going to apply to you, but it might apply to somebody in an 8-team league, depending on the circumstances. So we'll be doing a lot more of these tier ranking style videos. I feel like they're more universal. I feel like it's more of a utility where it kind of applies to everybody in terms of where I'm ranking. That way, if you have somebody at 10, somebody at 12, and somebody at 19, you're like, yeah, I'm going to take those 2 top people. Analysis is going to be the same. If anything, it's going to get better. We're going to dive into next-gen stats a little bit more. But again, folks, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. We're going to be going over a ton of great fantasy quarterback ranking options here. I mean, we're just going to go top to bottom. There's going to be a couple exceptions. I'll explain those in a second. So without further ado, let's get into it. So you're not going to be able to see the quarterback heads, and there are a couple exceptions. So Geno Smith, Brock Purdy, and Andy Dalton are not in here. It's going to show Drew Lock. I have to make an updated version. I'm just taking somebody else's right now. It's going to show Drew Lock. It's going to show Trey Lance. So I could talk about them, but I'm really going to talk about Geno, Brock Purdy, and Andy Dalton. Those guys took over for the majority. Heineke and Wentz is going to be a split. Technically, Wentz got a little more playing time, so we'll probably go there. See, we got Tino in the chat. Welcome aboard, Tino. Thank goodness DeMar is feeling better. Yeah, thank goodness is right. That was a scary, scary incident, to say the very least. Yeah, I'm super glad. Looks like he's talking again off the breathing tube, talking to his teammates over Zoom. So that's phenomenal. What'd you guys decide to do for your leagues? Yeah, for my league, so I was going up against somebody, and he had Joe Burrow and Stephon Diggs going into the matchup down like 21.5 point PPR, so I was probably more likely than not to lose. But obviously, game got canceled. So we are going into Week 18, and Joe Burrow and Stephon Diggs, so his 2 Bengals-Bills players from that matchup, they are getting their points doubled for this week, and then we're combining our Week 17 and 18 totals. You know, some leagues are just calling it. Other leagues are saying, let's combine 17 and 18. Let's just do 18. Let's split the prize, that type of thing. Trevor surprised you. Danny Dimes surprised you. Yeah, we're going to go over it all, Tina. We've got plenty of notes on plenty of these players, so let's get started on that. Speaking of which, I'm not going to go in any particular order here. I'm kind of just going to pick around. This first one's pretty interesting to me. We'll start with him. Oh, here, sorry. 1 second. I got to be careful scrolling here. Oh, I messed it up. Okay, we're good. Okay, so for tier rankings, let's start out with... you just mentioned him. We'll do it, Tino. We're going to put Danny Dimes... Oh, I'm right in between. We've got 7 categories, 32 quarterbacks to choose from, so we're going to have about 5 for each one. I'm going to put Danny Dimes high B. I might shift him. I can be convinced. Daniel Jones definitely performed this year. They were doing a lot of rollout pass concepts. Obviously, with Saquon Barkley being healthy, that's going to help his production a ton. Johnny's in here playing my final on Sunday, even though Connor and Fields are definitely out. It pains me to drop them. At this point, you know, you're in the final. You got to take what's going right now, and you got to start people. I'm starting Jared Stidham over Brock Purdy and Justin Herbert because Herbert's going up against the Broncos, so I understand. But Johnny, good to see you stopping in. We're doing quarterback rankings for the 2022-2023 season. Basically, I'm ranking these people in terms of where I'd draft them right now, relative to one another. So I got Danny Dimes. I'm going high B right now. I feel like there's better options out there, but fantasy-wise, you know, he has the upside when they're doing the bootleg drag-out. I think he has done absolutely phenomenal. Definitely used his legs as a weapon, and like I said before, when you have Saquon Barkley healthy, things are usually going to go pretty well. So I think Daniel Jones was able to throw it on the field really well. Again, he doesn't have a great wide receiving core. Gave up Kadarius Toney a few games into the year, right? So, you know, what are you going to do? But it's got Sterling Shepard. Wandale was looking good for a bit. They gave up Evan Ingram. Lost a lot of pieces out wide, really. So I'm curious to see if they give him some more pieces, Daniel Jones. Because obviously they're set at running back. Defenses looked pretty good when healthy. Offensive line could still be better, but when you have design runs, which is what they've built into the scheme for Daniel Jones over the course of the last couple years, I feel like you're going to have some more success, to say the very least. So that's where we have Daniel Jones. And folks, I will keep up with this chat as much as possible. So if you have any questions going into Week 18, you just let me know. Let's go to this next one. We're going to go Carson Wentz. He's played about half the season. Oh, he had a rushing touchdown the other day. I think I'm going to go E. Carson Wentz, not single-handedly, you can't put it all on the quarterback, but he played a pretty significant part. It makes me tempted to say the word single-handedly when I describe what he did with the Washington Commanders' playoff hopes. Hopefully you did not try and start him if you're in a deeper league, I understand. But a guy you definitely want to stay away from. Through 3 picks, just not making good decisions with the football. Felt like he did better on the Colts than people wanted to give him credit for. Had over 25 touchdowns, limited the turnovers for the most part. I think the biggest critique people have with Carson Wentz, and it's something that's been put under a magnifying glass over the last couple of years with his case, with Daniel Jones' case before he started doing design runs, his pocket presence is horrible. If someone's coming up on his blind side, he's not looking over, he's not sliding up in the pocket. I feel like, and then from that, he panics, makes a stupid throw. That's kind of the situation with Carson Wentz right now. Didn't help out the Commanders team a whole lot. There was the whole chat between him and, not really between him, but, between him and Taylor Heineke over separate press conferences where he said, yeah, he's ready to come in and start. And Heineke came in and said, look, I understand I don't have a starting spot here. They're paying Carson $30 million. They're paying me way less than that, like 10% or less of that, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't have his contract on hand. So with that, I do think Taylor Heineke produces way better. They're going with Sam Howell going into Week 18 because they're out of playoff contention. And yeah, Ron Rivera did not know that until the press conference. He said, we can be eliminated tonight. And that was when the Packers won and then kicked them out. So yeah, it's Packers, Lions, and Seahawks fighting for that last spot now. But Carson Wentz, I feel like didn't perform at all. Anytime you have somebody losing the starting job, and we have that case scenario with a couple of people, we're going to go over Derek Carr in a bit. I think that it's really hard to make a case for them. And then you have his most recent performance, having him turn the ball over 3 times. Again, folks, we're ranking these quarterbacks in order of who we would draft this year. It's really hard for me to put him. I might even move him down to an F, depending on where I end up putting these other guys. This is not planned out. I have notes, but I'm going to rank these guys as I see fit, considering my notes. I wanted this to be an authentic reaction. So, anytime you have somebody who's fighting for the starting job and may have just single-handedly lost it, I think it's really hard to put them high in the rankings. Prey is in the chat. Good to see you, Prey. If you have any opinions on certain quarterbacks, I have the question in there. Which quarterbacks surprised you this year? Who came out and surprised you in a good way? Maybe not a very good way. Who took a significant step forward that you weren't expecting? Who took a significant step back? Let me know. I am here for it. We were just talking about Derek Carr. Let's do it. Let's do Derek Carr. Derek Carr, does he have a job next year? That's a question, right? 14 interceptions. It's hard to really make a case for the guy. For now, I'm going to slot him in D, just because Jared Stidham came out and had one of the better performances I have seen in the last couple of years against a very tough San Francisco 49ers defense. He had 365 passing yards, folks, to just a measly 2 interceptions, and then he had 3 touchdowns as well. So really had some success through the air. Obviously, that game went to overtime. He had a little more opportunity to perform, but he's throwing off platform to Devontae Adams. A lot of people were benching Adams. They were worried about that connection because of what happened with Trace McSorley and DeAndre Hopkins not too long ago. I think that, I really do think that Jared Stidham, especially with the Josh McDaniels connection, might have that job locked down. Devontae Adams said he's definitely staying in Las Vegas regardless of what happens with his former Fresno State teammate. But honestly, I think that with Jared Stidham possibly taking that job away, it's really tough for me to put somebody like Derek Carr above that D range. The offense has looked horrible. They've only won a few games this year, and Josh Jacobs has been top tier. Devontae Adams has looked great. At some point, you have to understand that Derek Carr was choreographing a lot of his throws. He was making dumb decisions, like I said before, 14 picks on the year. He's not going to be a great fantasy option if, again, there is a possibility that Jared Stidham takes over. The fact that Stidham came in before Derek Carr, the fact that Stidham came in to replace Derek Carr before this team was eliminated from playoff contention, because going into that matchup against the 49ers, they technically weren't mathematically eliminated yet. It would have taken leaps and bounds for them to make it, but the fact that the string was pulled then really makes me question a lot about this team, about Josh McDaniels' belief in Derek Carr, and a plethora of other things. Prey is sweating Madden. Yeah, I was sweating Madden earlier, and I got beat on. So hopefully you're doing better than me. Maybe we do some Madden streams in the future. Who knows? Have to put Derek Carr at a D. D for Derek, because we're just not sure about the job security. So let's get a little more optimistic here. We started with one good one in Daniel Jones. I could be convinced to move him up in A range. We'll have to see. We're doing about 4 to 5 per category. Let's go to... This is an interesting one, right? And this is why I might have to put Daniel Jones up further. I'm gonna go high C range, actually, for Dak. We'll have to see if I want to push him up more. He might be B range. We'll put him up there for now. We'll put the two NFC East rivals next to each other. Dak Prescott, there was the whole drama before. I play on PS4, Pray. Let me know if you are on PlayStation. They need to make Madden and 2K cross-platform. My goodness. Anyway, Dak Prescott had one of the finer days, or one of the finer seasons that we've seen, even though it was abbreviated. Able to throw down the field a lot. And there were some questions before. He's turning the ball over on Thanksgiving. He's ticking a lot of that franchise off. I do believe that Dak Prescott, has enough upside for us to have some optimism. Look, the reason I'm definitely putting him ahead of guys like Derek Carr, like Carson Wentz, well, Dak Prescott is one of the only quarterbacks, I'd say, him and Jalen Hurts. Or excuse me, no. No. Never mind. I went on a trailed thought there, but Dak Prescott, he's got job security. We know it's his job under there. I'm on PS5, but I got old gen Madden. Okay, I'll consider it, Pray. If we look at Dak's season here, 22 passing touchdowns, 69% completion percentage. We got a guy who's throwing the ball on the field a decent amount. CeeDee Lamb has looked like a top 10 wide receiver. And again, we're going to do running back, receiver, and tight end rankings going forward as well. So look forward to those in the coming weeks, along with some season overviews, fantasy awards, that type of thing. But Dak Prescott, 22 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. The 14 picks is the reason I really want to scoot him down to a high C. I'm unsure about him, and I guess I was feeling more optimistic when I first, touched his little icon because we were coming off of Derek Carr and Carson Wentz. But Dak Prescott has the same amount of interceptions as Derek Carr, and he's actually played in less games. Highest interception percentage of his career at 3.9 right now. Yards per attempt is 7.7. It's pretty healthy. He's still throwing it down the field a decent amount. Michael Gallup being healthy towards the latter half of the season helps him. Dalton Schultz has looked extremely sharp this year. Nonetheless, do I play Ultimate Team? I used to play Ultimate Team. I'm more of just an online head-to-head guy right now. My Ultimate Team got up to like an 89. I started getting, absolutely smacked by like 97, 98s who spent money on their team. So I don't play Ultimate Team anymore. But Dak Prescott, 22 touchdowns, 14 interceptions on an abbreviated season in a pretty tough NFC East. I will say that. He's had 6 really tough games to play this year. He's played 5 of them so far. He's got 1 more coming up. Dak Prescott, I think, 14 picks. I'm going to scoot him down. He's definitely above these two guys, but I can't put him up there with Daniel Jones, even though I feel like it was definitely different last year. Dak's turned the ball over so many times. He's forced a lot of throws. There have been some throws, they go off the hands of Lamb. They go off the hands of Noah Brown, Michael Gallup. But I'm going to say he's a C right now just because of the turnover issues. You lose 2 points for every interception. He's thrown 14 of those. That's enough to convince me, I would say. Let's go to another one that is very interesting to me, and I'm going to put him up here. I have to. Tua Tagovailoa has been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Lower Jones, lower than B. If you look at Daniel Jones and how he's done this year, I think he's been a phenomenal fantasy quarterback. He's involved in the running game. That's the appeal, right? With a lot of quarterbacks, when you want to look at who should we consider, Justin Fields is going to be high up as well because of that. I don't know if I can be convinced on that one. Tino versus Prey on Madden, maybe? Do we line that up and stream it here? I'll be your like father channel. We'll just stream it, right? I'll react to it and everything. But Tua, highest yards per attempts in the league at 8.9. Say what you want about his skill. Miami has an electric offense, and Tua performed this year. 25 passing touchdowns, not too many picks. Tua Tagovailoa was able to throw the ball in the field. Only reason I would not, same tier as Jones, injury prone. I was going to say, only reason I wouldn't move him up anymore is because he is injury prone. He's had the 2 concussions. He had the extremely scary one in that Bengals game a couple months ago, excuse me. So Tua Tagovailoa, yes, he's got the highest yards per attempt in the league. And, whether you want to talk about his skill or not, I will say he has one of the best supporting casts. He's got Tyreek Hill. He's got Raheem Mostert, who's been a pretty decent pass catcher out of the backfield. He's got Jalen Waddle. He's got Mike Gesicki. He's got a few guys who can definitely Sherfield as well. We're thinking B because that's a really good argument, Dylan. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to have to put 8 or 9 people above Tua, but I do think there's 8 or 9 names on here that I would still put above Tua Tagovailoa because of the injuries. He's produced super well, but again, do you want to go and draft somebody who you're not sure is going to be on the field? We're going to make him a high B right now. I think that's fair. I think he's above Daniel Jones for sure, and this will be in order from left to right. We decided to just add projections and donated some of the pod to his donation. That's really cool, Tino, actually, for Damar Hamlin. I had a live stream roughly, no, it wouldn't have been a week ago because it was a Monday night game. 3 days ago. There is a link in that description if you want to donate to Damar Hamlin's community toy drive. I'm sure he's thrilled now that he is probably able to see the contributions. I believe it's up to 7 million. It's probably more than that now. Now that he's awake and on the road to improvement, now that he's able to see all the donations, I'm sure that is something he's going to be super happy to see. Dylan, you convinced me. I think anytime you have an injury-prone quarterback, you want somebody who's going to be on the field. I think if Tua stayed healthy, he's definitely low A range. Tua on the A side, I'm just worried about those injuries. Alex is seconding that, so you guys turned me. Tua would be S without injury. Pray, that might be a stretch. I'm reserving S for 3 or 4 quarterbacks that you guys could probably guess the majority of. But I think that, yeah, when you have somebody who's missed a few games, and we can look it up here. Even before this season, going into the draft out of Alabama, Tua Tagovailoa had some injury issues as well. I think it's interesting to say that, or it's fair to say, he had the 6 touchdown game earlier this year against the Ravens, what ended up being a win. So he's played in 10, 13, and 13 games. So through 3 years, Tua has already missed... Oh, I forget it's 17-game season the last 2 weeks, or the last 2 years. So 4, he will have missed 4 again. So it's 8 plus 6. He's missed 14 games in the first 3 years. I would say the injury argument is valid. I will say if Tua Tagovailoa was healthy, especially with the weapons of Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Gesicki's actually an underrated tight end. He's just super inconsistent for fantasy. So you'll see him pretty low in my fantasy tight end rankings, not to spoil that too much. And he's competing with Smythe for the tight end 1 position in Miami as well. But Tua's got some great stats in terms of just being able to take care of the ball. 52 touchdowns, 23 interceptions. He throws the ball a healthy amount down the field this year. 8.9 yards per attempt, like I said before. It was 6.3 and 6.8 before, averaging in the mid-6s. The guy has been phenomenal. He just needs to stay on the field. So you convinced me, folks. We're going to go with Tua high B, mid to high B. If he could just stay healthy, I'd put him in A in a moment just because of the supporting cast and the improvement that I think we've seen from him for sure. I keep moving the tier list. All right, there we go. We're good. All right, who do we go to next? Let's do this. Let's go Mr. Thumbnail, shall we? This guy's... Oh, hello? This guy's in the A tier. Trevor Lawrence has taken... Ace, your Mutt team is a 91 overall. Yeah, I'm not playing you. Got the game on Christmas. Okay, you've been grinding. You need to go touch some grass, pray. No, I'm just messing around. But we're going to go at A tier for Trevor Lawrence. I'm not going to put him in S tier yet. I'm not going to put him in B tier. I think he was in B tier until about a month ago. Trevor Lawrence has been lighting the world on fire, and as a result, his team is still in playoff contention. They have an AFC South title game coming up against the Tennessee Titans. It's going to be Trevor Lawrence if he's healthy. It looks like he's questionable right now, so you fantasy owners, you keep an eye out for that. I would say he goes unless it's a critical injury because this is their season right here. A lot of people were saying the Jags were still going to be rebuilding. If the Jags had a couple more wins, I'd put Doug Peterson in there for Coach of the Year. I think it's Brian Daboll or Nick Sirianni's job right now, or their award right now. I do need to touch grass. But Trevor Lawrence, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in the last 8 games. Look, when we compare Trevor Lawrence to Justin Fields, to Trey Lance, to Mac Jones, to Davis Mills, and to Zach Wilson, who we will get to as well, folks, he is the best sophomore quarterback coming out of the 2021 NFL draft class. He has been phenomenal. He's got the great weapons around him for fantasy upside. You talk about a guy who I think is getting close to top 15 territory in Christian Kirk. Targets have been low as of late. He's 98 yards away from an incentive, and usually when it's payday, those guys get their incentives. However, I don't think any throws are going to get forced to him because, again, the Jags are playing for the division. But 14 touchdowns, 2 picks in the last 8 games. Trevor Lawrence has shown us sizable growth, to say the very least. He's making a lot better, way more better decisions. if that's a correct phrase. I feel like I'm kind of getting my words jumbled there. Then just way better decision making than we saw out of him. It's a toe injury, questionable for Saturday's game. I'm just checking his status right now. Then we saw out of him in his rookie year. We saw Trevor Lawrence really test the waters in his rookie year. He had 12 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, and I'm not going to make this comparison directly, but I will say, look at Peyton Manning's rookie year. It was absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. It was like, I believe he had it was around 20 interceptions. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Quarterback rating of just 71.9. He was sacked more. This year, 3,900 yards, and he's got a week left still, so he can pass the 4,000 yard mark. Yards per attempt is up from 6.0 to 7.1. He's got 24 touchdowns through the air to 8 picks. Doesn't really run the ball a whole lot, but I feel like he runs more than people want to give him credit for. 58 rushing attempts for 294 yards and 5 touchdowns. Those 5 touchdowns on the ground, remember, those are 6 points. That's an extra 30 points plus the yards on the ground, another 30 points. Extra 60 points on the ground from a guy I feel like not many people consider as a running quarterback, even in college. You know, he had an All-American offensive line in front of him. He kind of do what he wanted. He doesn't have that in Jacksonville. It's definitely an improving one. He is connected with Evan Ingram super well. Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. He is making this this pass-catching core look phenomenal, and I think they're doing him some favors as well. We've got a couple more in the chat here. Using 95 overall Eric Dickerson with Bruiser and Tank. If you've seen the Chris Collinsworth video talking about... Oh, no, that's Landon Dickerson, excuse me. Yeah, that's pretty OP. Level 48 on the field pass. My goodness. Only spent $25 on the game. Someone got me a card for Christmas. So essentially, you're breaking even. That's pretty good. Okay. Alex says, maybe I need to watch some more football games. It's between Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen that I feel as though they should be putting up 30-plus points game each week. Is that unrealistic? I don't think that's unrealistic. We've seen it with Josh Allen. Are you talking about fantasy points, Alex, or offensive points in general? I think Trevor Lawrence has the pieces, but again, we got to understand we're dealing with a sophomore QB. He's not really a raw talent, right? He's more built up than a Trey Lance, than a Zach Wilson. That experiment went horribly. But nonetheless, I think that Trevor Lawrence has the pieces around him. You think about it. You've got Christian Kirk over Mahomes. I'm not sure about that. But Trevor Lawrence has the pieces around him. You've got Christian Kirk. You've got Zay Jones. You've got Evan Ingram, who has slowly turned into a top five tight end for fantasy. I'm gonna have to look at the whole picture to see where I end up ranking him. That's gonna be interesting. But we haven't done Mahomes and Allen yet, so you'll have to see Prey. But he was in the thumbnail, so obviously he's getting some high praise. I think Trevor Lawrence has those pieces, and then Alex, if you look at Josh Allen, it's Stephon Diggs, it's Isaiah McKenzie, it's Gabriel Davis, Mr. Big Play Gabe. I think he's gotten more dink and dunk passes, so I'm a little more confident in him. He's going to be an interesting one in the wide receiver rankings as well, because if you look at Gabe Davis, there's not a ton of consistency there. It's offensive firepower. You know, I think the Jags have shown a lot of improvement. I think Doug Peterson's the right guy for Trevor Lawrence. And actually, if we look, let's see here. Again, if you guys are just joining, this is a fantasy quarterback tier rankings list. Basically, who are we drafting and in what order for 2023 right now? Oh, to Peanut Butter's comment. Gotcha. So if we look, yeah, Buffalo, 28 points a game. They're 4th in the league. Jacksonville, 24 points a game, 11th in the league. And if you're talking about fantasy, I feel like it's kind of tough to get 30 on a consistent basis, Alex. But if you're talking about just regular points per game, Buffalo's pretty much doing it. Jacksonville's close. You have to understand, though, Alex, time of possession is definitely a thing as well. When you have a defense like Jacksonville's that's definitely still improving, fantasy points, so more PPR. Okay. As a first-year player, I keep seeing Lawrence in top 10 rankings everywhere, but I'm unimpressed with what I see. 30, yeah, even with PPR, 30 points is a tough standard to hit. I mean, I think if you can get 30 points a handful of times out of somebody, Alex, it's pretty good. Justin Fields was lighting the world on fire for a bit, and I believe he only has a handful of 30-point performances. Patrick Mahomes is the same way. I can go on Mahomes' tab right now. Doesn't help that he's questionable this week. I need Hurts to come back, but completely skeptical. Everybody's playing for something. Okay, I guess the Bucks are kind of just locked into the 4 seed, right? But otherwise, nobody's got a bye secured. The Bengals-Bills thing kind of complicates things in terms of just clinching and all that. But if we look, I'm just curious, and then we'll keep these rankings going. Folks, make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure, of course, you ask any fantasy football questions you have. I still take questions regardless of the topic of a live stream. I will make plenty of time for you. Just say the word. I'm curious here. So if we look at like Patrick Mahomes, the #1 fantasy quarterback, he's averaging 25.2. Okay, so he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alex, I feel like 30-point performances, they seem more in reach than they actually are. Yeah, I think Lawrence is, as a first-year player, I keep seeing Lawrence in top 10 rankings everywhere, but I'm unimpressed with what I see. I think the rankings are usually, I think he's fringe top 10. I really do. Trevor Lawrence has done well. I think you're giving him a little more flack. Look, we've still got to understand we have a sophomore quarterback on our hands. He's not as developed as like a Jalen Hurts or a Justin Herbert, or obviously cream of the crop. We've got Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes as well. But if I look in here, what's Trevor? Trevor Lawrence is just consistent. I think that's it, right? So we got a 25-point performance, 25, 21, 25, 33, 27, 19. If you can get a guy who's consistently giving you 17, 18 points, Trevor Lawrence is ranked 8th in the league right now in my fantasy PPR, so it's probably going to be similar for yours. And he's averaging 18 points a game. If you can get a guy who's going to get you a floor of 15, a safe 15, I would take that over somebody, and that's what Trevor Lawrence has been this year, with the exception of last week. I would take that over somebody who's going to give you 20 one week and then 5 the next week. Alex, I think Trevor Lawrence is pretty consistent. He's got the developing pieces around him. We just need another year under the same coach. If you think about it, Lawrence has now had 3 years with 3 different coaches. He was over in Clemson. Last year he had Urban Meyer. Now it's Doug Peterson. He had an interim head coach, so really it's 4 in 3 years and 3 in 2 years. I think Lawrence is a good raw product in terms of fantasy football. There are better options than him. That's why I put him in the 8 tier. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be people above Lawrence in the 8 tier, and there's going to be people in the S tier. And I'll tell you exactly this. Trevor Lawrence not consistently getting over 20 points is why I'm saying he's not in the S tier. He's not as developed. The weapons around him, while they are impressive and while it is a deep lineup, I'm not going to sit here and try and convince you that Christian Kirk is better than 10 or 12 other wide receiver ones. But Kirk, Jones, Ingram, and many others, that's a really good wide receiving core. You have a pass-catching back for dump-offs and Travis Etienne as well. I'm okay with it, but I understand what you're saying, Alex. You know, you have a guy who's highly ranked. You want to see him score more, but 30 points, if you can get that a handful of times in the season, even the Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, they're only going to get you 5 to 7 of those. Dylan says, I'll be right back. No problem, Dylan. Thanks for stopping in. Peanut butter and waivers. I have Fields quarterback 1 in 2023. I'd grab Fields. You have a team in the Bears that is top 5 in the league in market cap right now. Market cap availability. What does that mean? They have plenty of spending money. Okay, so they could probably do a lot there. They potentially had the number 2, or if the Texans beat the Colts, which I feel like is pretty possible, and the Bears lose, which, fun fact, I'm going to see Bears-Vikings at Soldier Field in 2 days. If that happens, the Bears could have the number 1 overall pick. What does that mean? They either go up and they get somebody phenomenal. They get a Will Anderson on defense. They go build the offensive line. They go after a Marvin Harrison Jr. or something like that. Or they trade that top 3 pick. They trade that quote-unquote lottery pick. Well, it's more lottery in the NBA, so that's not really the correct terminology. But they trade that top pick for a haul. They get some offensive linemen. They go out and get Orlando Brown with their money because he's going to be a free agent in 2023. I think that Fields is only going to get better because look what he did this year. The offensive line's okay. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're horrible because if you watch Justin Fields, I do think he spends too much time sitting around looking downfield. He holds onto the ball too long. He doesn't throw the ball away enough, so that's why the sack numbers are up. However, if they can build a better offensive line, if guys like Tevin Jenkins can stay healthy and Larry Borum can stay healthy, and they can get him some wide receivers, I think it's great. You're not going to see him run as much. He almost broke the record this year. But I think for sure that Justin Fields is a great pick. Jason, yeah. Or Mahomes and Josh Allen. Yes, quarterback 1. Yeah. Look at what he did. He had, I've got it here. Justin Fields, 7 games with 80-plus rushing yards and 25 total touchdowns on the year. Just something we really want to see out of a quarterback. You know, he's got over 1,000 rushing yards on the year. That's an extra 100 points for you fantasy PPR. Sean Payton to the Bears. I don't think Matt Eberflus is on the hook. I really don't. I don't think he's on the hot seat. Everybody understands the cards that he was dealt. This was a very extended conversation. I'm sorry, guys, but I just wanted to make sure I'm keeping up with the chat. Sean Payton to the Bears. I get what you're saying. Yep. So we're going C-Law at A. I think he's got a lot to prove still, but he's utilized his weapons well. 14 touchdowns and 2 picks in the last 8 games. I'll take it. He is taking care of the football. He's utilizing different weapons. He's spreading the ball around a lot. He's not super reliant like Derek Carr was this year on Devontae Adams, which ultimately, among other things, led him to being benched. This one's easy. Josh Allen. Yeah, don't panic. I'm putting him up here. S tier. Josh Allen, 3 straight years with 30-plus passing touchdowns. I think that Josh Allen is a top-tier quarterback when you talk about somebody who can tuck the ball down and run. That's not what he's known for, right? He's known for his cannon arm. He's known for the phenomenal weapons around him, the electric 28 points per game scoring offense, the number 3 offense in the league, or number 4 offense in the league in Buffalo. I think that Josh Allen has it marked out for him. Long contract on the way, I'm sure. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, both from an objective, just pure let's analyze the game standpoint, and from a fantasy football standpoint. He's top 3 year in and year out, and I think that'll continue to happen. So Josh Allen, S tier. I feel like that one was pretty easy. We're going to keep spreading it out here. Marcus Mariota, we're going to go E. He didn't look horrible. I felt like Desmond Ridder was going to step in a lot sooner, and Marcus Mariota, he had a good day on his birthday. He was rushing well. I feel like that Marcus Mariota held the fort down, and the Falcons actually were not. The reality of the situation is they were not eliminated from playoff contention until a couple weeks ago. Now, is that because, I don't know, the NFC South is horrible? More so. I see Anime's in the chat. Good to see you here, Anime. I would say it's more so because the NFC South is just an absolute joke this year. But I would also say that Marcus Mariota deserves some credit. I don't think he has a starting quarterback job in the league next year, so I'm not going to be able to rank him at or above Derek Carr, because Derek Carr, I think that it's a 50-50 swap. There might be an open quarterback competition next year. Marcus Mariota, I feel like they were just handing the reins off to Desmond Ridder. It was just a matter of when and not if. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. Let's look here. Who do we want next? We're going to go Kyler right below. This is tough. And like I said, folks, I'm going to be shifting some things around here. We're going to go Kyler. We're going to go Kyler Murray right next to Dak Prescott. Didn't have too many injury issues. I think there's definitely some skepticism when you look at the whole situation with the Cardinals. You had the extension. They're telling him, hey, in this contract, you got to do your homework, buddy. I feel like there's some concern anytime you have to remind your quarterback to do his research. Kyler Murray, for the most part, is, he's a dynamic running back. He's a dynamic running quarterback. Yeah, let's start a debate there. You guys are going to be like, oh, why didn't you call Fields a running back? Yeah, don't worry. I know the jokes. But nonetheless, Kyler Murray, when healthy, has been a productive fantasy quarterback, and that's exactly what we're rating these guys as. I did find it interesting that Coach Cliff Kingsbury, again, this is factoring into where would I draft this quarterback. He said that DeAndre Hopkins will most likely not be ready for week 1 of 2023. So this knee injury that we're talking about is a little more serious than I thought. We also got to understand that DeAndre Hopkins is going to be 31 at that point, or just about 31. But I do think, that could definitely impact Kyler Murray. He didn't perform too well in the first few weeks. Then DeAndre Hopkins came in, and there was a 4 or 5 week window, and then Kyler was gone. Rondale Moore was down. Zach Ertz was gone. So there's that. Or Zach Ertz just wasn't playing. But Kyler, if we look at him across the board, first 3 seasons, 20-plus passing touchdowns. It's impressive stuff. Turnovers have been an issue. 12, and 10 interceptions. They were actually down this year, but he hasn't played as much. Quarterback rating was the worst it has been. So 14 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. My concern with Kyler Murray is the trust from that organization. If you are so sold on extending somebody, I still can't get over this. Why would you even consider putting it in there? Hey, you got to do your homework. Look, if he needs to do it, that's a conversation that you have with him, or you don't have him sign the contract yet, because that is public information. The whole league finds out. Now we're in his head, all that stuff. But Kyler, because of his rushing upside, I'm going to put him. Yeah, I could scoot him up to B. I really could, because he had 500, 800, 400, and then 400 again this year rushing yards. 23 rushing touchdowns through his first 4 years. He's among the top ranks, and he's been healthy. He missed 3 games last year, and he's going to miss 5 games this year. Before that, first 2 years, he didn't miss any. So if you want to be skeptical, he's missed 8 games his last 2 years. You could start to say maybe there's an injury issue or a constant one there. I'm going to put Kyler in the C tier for now. You could convince me to move him up. You can't convince me to move him down because he does have a home there. He's got the long-term contract. That's something we're considering here. We know he's the guy next year, unless something crazy happens, right? Let's go Kirk. We're gonna put Kirk. I could put Kirk low A. I would not have a problem with putting Kirk low A because there's a lot of guys here who are looking real average right now who I think are gonna bump him up. You know what? Give me crap for it. Kirk is low A. Kirk Cousins has the best wide receiver in the NFL on his team. That's it. That's as simple as it is. He's got 28 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, so just as many interceptions as Derek Carr, but he's obviously going to put above Derek Carr on this list because we know that Kirk has a job. Kellen Mond was drafted a couple years ago. Nobody was batting an eye about that. Turns out he hasn't looked too good. There's plenty of development left for him. Kirk Cousins has looked fine. I still think Kirk Cousins is one of the most overhated quarterbacks in the league. He's like a Matthew Stafford in Detroit. He's going to get a lot more credit if he leaves this place, but he has so many weapons right now. Everyone's like, oh, Matthew Stafford was getting a lot of appreciation in Detroit, and then he goes to the Rams, and I feel like there's been some hate on him. People are still saying, oh, he had his days in Detroit, so he deserves this, but there's people leaning the other direction as well. So Kirk Cousins, if we look, 35, 33, 28, 26, 30, 27, 25, 29. I just read off the past 8 years. Tua over Kirk. Kirk doesn't get hurt. That's my argument, Pray. If we look last year, he sat out one game. The year prior, he played all. The year before that, in 2019, he sat out one. 2018, he played all. 2017, he played all. 2016, he played all. 2015, he played all. 2014, 13, and 12, he didn't have the job yet. He was taking over for RG3. I'm going to put Kirk at low A. I am. Because Tua Tagovailoa is not on the field as much. And multiple of you, many of you, I believe 2 or 3 of you said the same thing about Tua. The injuries are just too much. We're going to get more production out of Kirk because he's not going to be off the field for a third of the season. We haven't seen that. He's one of the most durable quarterbacks in the league. He's turned the ball over a career high 14 times through the air, so that's a little high. Stafford is mid. We'll get to Stafford. I can do him next. But he's had, let's look here, 7 of his last 8 seasons, 4,000 plus yards. We have a volume passer on our hands. We have Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the league, even though Jair just locked him up. I mean, you've got DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going through some injuries right now, so I feel like we got to make the argument that somebody needs to stay on the field to claim that title. Mike Evans, 9 straight 1,000-yard seasons. I just saw that. Devontae Adams, you can make an argument for him. Corey, when you're done with these rankings, who's the best passing quarterback on here? Trying to maximize the most possible points next season. I'll answer that for you right now, Alex. It's Patrick Mahomes. Tyreek Hill left the team, and we are not seeing Patrick Mahomes bat an eye. If we look at Patrick Mahomes, we'll do Stafford and then Mahomes, since you guys are bringing him up. I'm very flexible with how this goes. 5,048 yards. 5,048. You know the craziest part about that? He's on pace to have the most yards he's ever had. Okay, so 2018 is different because obviously it was 16 games and he had 5,097 yards. He is on pace to have the most passing yards he's ever had in a season. And Tyreek Hill's gone. Nobody was going to say, oh, Patrick Mahomes is going to suck without Hill. But there were a lot of people in the camp saying, hey, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to take a decent step back as a fantasy quarterback because he doesn't have the fastest, most shifty guy in the league. 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, over 5,000 yards, still decently involved on the ground. I am very okay with just sitting with Patrick Mahomes year in and year out. He's had 300-plus rushing yards as well, 8 total touchdowns the last 3 years on the ground. Patrick Mahomes is going to chuck it down the field with some accuracy. Everyone talks about, oh, he's got a cannon. 66% completion percentage. We're going to cross-reference that with the fact that he's averaging 8.1 yards per attempt, one of the highest rates in the league over the course of the last 6 years since he went in and got the starting job going into 2018. Alex, it's Patrick Mahomes. It is definitely Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, those guys, right? And I'll name one more. I'm not going to say his name yet, but he's also in the S tier. He'll be up there. Yeah, absolutely. But again, Kirk Cousins, I feel like, is overhated anytime you have somebody who's locked into a contract and has the best wide receiver in the game at his disposal. A phenomenal wide receiver, too. One of the best in the league, in the veteran Adam Thielen. Top 5 tight end. I would even say top 3 tight end. I'd say it's Kelsey, Kittle, Andrews, and Hawkinson are all up by themselves right now. Ingram's up there, too. Definitely top 5. And TJ Hawkinson. He's got so many weapons at his disposal. We're seeing production. He's locked into a contract. He's healthy. I'm putting Kirk in low A tier. Absolutely. So, who did we say we're going to do next? Matthew Stafford. Going forward, he might still have a job. I don't think anyone's questioning the fact that Matthew Stafford still has a job going forward. So I'm going to put Matthew Stafford at the C tier right now. I'm putting him above Derek Carr. Again, folks, if you're wondering why Derek Carr, Carson Wentz, Marcus Mariota are lower, and I might even push them down. I might push them down even more because, again, I am ranking these quarterbacks relative to each other in terms of who am I drafting and in what order. I know Matthew Stafford has a job. As much as, praise saying Matthew Stafford is mid, he had a bad year this year. Stafford had an elbow injury coming into the year, so we're going to keep that into consideration as well. We want someone who's going to be on the field. But he's got a dynamic wide receiver, a volume guy. He's been able to shove the ball to Cooper Kupp a ton without turning the ball over too much going into this year, at least. That's one of my knocks on Stafford, though. More turnovers the last couple of years. He hasn't been as careful with more weapons at his disposal. But if you can get a healthy Cooper Kupp, a healthy Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson really stepped up, even though the season went to absolute crap. Tyler Higbee's looking like a top 10 tight end. The offensive line isn't horrible. I know losing Andrew Whitworth hurts a lot. You've got Jalen Ramsey in the secondary on the other end. Front seven's still great as long as Aaron Donald doesn't retire, although he does have his ring, so who knows. It's still a solid team. And are we really going to sit here and act like the NFC East or the NFC West is entirely tough? Look, the 49ers year in and year out are going to be great. But the Cardinals don't look great. Seahawks came out of nowhere, but they're starting to come down to earth again. The Rams could definitely make a wild card or even a division run next year. Call me crazy, but they've got the talent to do so. And we know Matthew Stafford has a job, so he is a C. Funny you mentioned Mahomes. My cousin has him, and he's in last place. But who else does your cousin have, right? Like, some people draft Mahomes, and they think it's just going to help everything. The reality is Patrick Mahomes is going to have 5 or 6 more points per game than the guy in 19th, 20th, or 21st. You've got to win at those skill positions. You've got to have a deep lineup. You can't just be top heavy and have someone could have Justin Jefferson and be last in their league, right? You need depth. You can't be starting people on their bye. Some people forget to set their lineups, so I'm sure there's a variety of reasons there. So I'm sure your cousin is a great person, Alex, but Patrick Mahomes can't carry a whole fantasy team as much as we want him to. So we did... Oh, let's do that right now. We were just talking about him. And I'm going to put him above Josh Allen for now. It's close, but he's more of a volume passer. He's got more passing touchdowns right now, and he turns the ball over less. Josh Allen has had some interception issues, to say the very least. That's why my one knock on him. Same with Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk could be in mid to high tier A. But Josh Allen, throwing more picks as of late. He does have one of the best arsenals at his disposal. He's got Stephon Diggs. He's got Isaiah McKenzie. He's got Gabriel Davis. He's got Dawson Knox. He's got 2 great running backs in the backfield now in Nyheim Hines and, of course, Devin Singletary. There's a lot to like on this Bills team. The defense gets the offense the ball back right away. They're one of the better teams in the league in terms of time of possession. They're running gun. They're going to use their running game a little bit more this year, but at the end of the day, they have a guy who can throw the ball 70 yards pretty accurately in Josh Allen. So one of the most raw talents we've seen. We see him get involved in the running game in goal-to-go situations. One of the better guys in the league in terms of QB sneaks. He's got the bigger body. He's going to put his shoulder down and plow over just about anybody that isn't a defensive lineman for that extra yard or two. So I'm a big fan. But again, 13 interceptions this year. We've got to watch the turnovers with Allen. It's not the most appealing thing, but when you have a guy who has thrown for over 4,000 yards in each of the last 3 years, has thrown for over 30 touchdowns in each of the last 3 years, there's not many who are in that caliber, and that's why he's S tier. I feel like there's not much of an explanation that's really needed there. Okay, let's go. Let's fill someone in the F tier. So Mitch lost his job, and he's not getting it back. Mitch Trubisky, I know the Pittsburgh Steelers started out 1-0. After that, didn't see much. It was more of another question, kind of along the lines of Marcus Mariota as well. It was when, not if. We knew Mitch was going to give up his job. We knew he was just a bridge quarterback. We knew Kenny Pickett was picked in the first round, and people were just waiting. It's the same situation with Desmond Ridder, with a couple exceptions. So this is just one of those situations where we know he doesn't have a job next year unless something crazy happens that Jets want to go pick him up instead of drafting a quarterback, or they could go with Mike White. There's not much to say about Mitch. I don't expect him to start any games next year unless he is a backup for a quarterback that ends up getting hurt or performing horribly. Drew Lock, we're going to put Geno Smith in his place, okay? This was made at the beginning of the year. Geno's low A. Geno Smith is the most unexpected story In terms of a success story of the entire NFL this year, who saw that coming? So let me break this down for you folks. Geno Smith had 37 passing touchdowns and 37 interceptions in his entire career, which is almost a decade now. Coming out of West Virginia, going to the Jets, jumping around a bit. 34 touchdown passes, 37 interceptions in his entire career. Coming into this year, he's supposed to back up Drew Lock. Drew Lock sent over to Seattle in that trade with Russell Wilson. And we'll get to Russell Wilson next. 29 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. 5 less touchdowns than he had his entire career. And keep in mind, he was a starter for 2 to 3 years. Geno Smith has not been turning the ball over until a couple games ago. He's got under 10 interceptions. He's throwing the ball on the field well. He's got some decent weapons around him, to say the very least. When you have DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett as your 1-2 punch, I'd say they have one of the more deep 1-2 punches in the league in terms of the two just being really talented. We talk about like Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. They're in that conversation too. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they're in a league of their own. Geno Smith is going to get an extension. You know, he will be a free agent after this year if they don't extend him. He's performed way too well to not get that. Seattle was looking for the next quarterback. Geno's 30. He's not that old. They can ride this out with him for the next 5-6 years, to say the very least. Maybe more if he starts taking the Tom Brady diet. He'll play till he's 45. Who knows? Just checking his age. He's 32. Geno Smith is 32 years old. Wilson belongs on the Z list. Oh, let's get to Zach Wilson. Let's do it. Where is he? There he is. We should make our own category for Zach Wilson. What a dud. What a dud. I don't know what else to say. The game against the Patriots, he's missing screen passes. Goes into the press conference and ends up telling people, hey, what was the question? Do you feel responsible, or do you feel like you let your defense down by putting up 3 points as an offense? And he goes, no. Zach Wilson has lost the locker room. Half the team is wearing Mike White shirts. They're sold on a guy who really hasn't proven a whole lot, but has had a couple nice games, a couple 300-yard games. Had a 300-yard, 3-passing touchdown game against the Bears. Russell Wilson's definitely on the do not draft list. He's next, don't you worry. Zach Wilson, yeah, I'll take requests, folks. Tell me who you want next. Zach Wilson has lost the locker room. He has lost the starting quarterback job. I could see the Jets trading up because they're 7-9. I could see them trading up and trying to get Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud. The Jets do not need another raw product. There was a lot to be excited about with Zach Wilson, but there were definitely some things to be fixed. He's what you'd call a project quarterback. Footwork things to be fixed. Learning how to read different defenses. Got away with a lot in BYU. Didn't have the strongest schedule in the world. So, Zach Wilson's bottom of the barrel. I am putting him last. Like, dead last. He is a failure. Turns the ball over way too much. I'm not sure I see another team taking a chance on him, and I don't think he's put anything on tape for another team to say, hey, starter material right here. Zach Wilson does not have a job, and he should definitely not have a job as your fantasy QB. Okay, who's next? Do we do Russ? Let's do Russ. Russ has a job. And because Russ has a job, Russ gets to be... Russ has to be right there. There are hardly any scenarios where I would draft Russell Wilson. However, the 5 I have below him do not have a starting quarterback job right now. Derek Carr's is up in the balance. Russ is locked into a contract. So as horrible as Russell Wilson is, we're going to do this. As horrible as Russell Wilson is, he might not have a starting job because Jarrett Stidham just tore up the 49ers. Had a better game than he's had pretty much all year. Carson Wentz has all but lost the job. Desmond Ritter's in town, taking over for Marcus Mariota. Mitch is in the exact same spot. Kenny Pickett's in. And Zach Wilson's just awful. So while Russ may be awful, Russ just signed a contract that he's only 1 year into that I don't think the Broncos can get out of. Because what Russ put on tape is not something another team is going to want to have as well. They're not going to want to pay that much for it. So we're going to put Russ in the D range. We might slide some people down and make him a high E. but he has to be above these 5 guys because he doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't have a job. He probably doesn't have a job, and he might not have a job. He has a job because he's locked into a contract that was based off his performance through his first 9 years, not what we saw this year. And maybe he ends up doing fine later. This was just a horrible adjustment period. That could be best case scenario, but we know Russ is starting in 2023. Let's get this one out of the way too. Davis Mills, people were saying, he's better than Trey Lance. He's better than Zach Wilson. I'll put him above Zach Wilson. Better than Zach Wilson, better than Trey Lance, who wasn't playing. They were saying he's better than Justin Fields. They were saying it was Mac Jones and Davis Mills. They had the 2 best rookie seasons, and then it would go Trevor Lawrence, then maybe Fields, and Lance didn't play. And Wilson looked bad. They started Kyle Allen about halfway through the season. Right now they're in the driver's seat at the number 1 pick, and with how many holes that are in that offense, I don't see them trading it. Dameon Pierce does look phenomenal, but we're going to say that Davis Mills is right down there. Any bonus points for the leg exercises? Johnny, yeah, that's why he's top of D right now. The leg exercises, I know exactly what you're talking about. The high knees on the plane. Justin Tucker's like trolling him. The whole league is trolling him. I feel bad for the guy. He's working hard, but it just hasn't been a good season for him. But Davis Mills doesn't have a job. Maybe it's an open quarterback competition, but he was benched halfway through the year. The team is, they have 2 wins on the year. They're throwing things at the wall and hoping they stick. It's pretty much Dameon Pierce on offense, and that's it. You got a veteran wide receiver in Brandon Cooks. Nico Collins looks okay. Davis Mills probably doesn't have a job either. It's as simple as that, and I will heighten the possibility that he doesn't have a job next year by saying the number 1 overall pick is likely going to be used on a quarterback, because that, among many other things, is a dire need for the Houston Texans. This guy took a step back this year. Again, this is Geno Smith, not Drew Lock. I know they look very similar, but Justin Herbert, he took a step back, but I will cut him a little bit of slack because Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Joshua Palmer, Parham, Gerald Everett. I just listed off 5 people who have been hurt and out for some games, usually at the same time, multiple times this year. Justin Herbert worked with a very banged-up wide receiving core. He didn't make the best decisions. He doesn't have the best pocket presence this year. I do think he took a general step back, but I think the raw arm talent, the decision-making, the ability to fit the ball into windows that less quarterbacks than the amount of fingers on my hand can fit the ball into. I'm still riding the Justin Herbert train. I'm still saying he is, although he was fringe top 10 for fantasy from what I'm seeing here, I'm still going to say Justin Herbert is a low A tier because of the weapons he does have at his disposal. So it's 23 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Still a 92.4 quarterback rating. But for fantasy, what do we care about? We care about scoring. So doesn't run a whole lot. No rushing touchdowns this year. He is going to get over 4,500 passing yards as long as he gets 34 yards in this upcoming performance. He's working with a playoff team. There's a lot of talent there. The defense was hurt too, and yeah, it sounds like I'm stretching now, right? But again, folks, time of possession. How long does that offense have the ball? Well, it doesn't help when the defense is allowing 10, 12, 14 play drives. So, and that's just a random number there, but the defense definitely had some holes in it. They were hurt a lot. So I think Justin Herbert, when he's got a healthier squad around him, will have a better year. Had 38 touchdowns last year. 15 picks, but again, when you have that much volume, when you threw for over 5,000 yards, you get a pass, to say the very least. So we're going to go low A for Herbert. Who next? Another guy who might not have a job next year. Well, we'll say might. Ryan Tannehill. So first they try out Malik Willis. They got him out of Liberty, a raw product with a lot of running ability. Decent arm, but they were just doing a lot of design runs, read option, power read with Derrick Henry as well. It worked pretty well. I mean, they almost beat the Chiefs with him. So not sure he's the answer, because then we see Joshua Dobbs come in and absolutely tear it up last week. I mean, against the Cowboys, yes, they lost, but the offense looked pretty good. He was able to get a lot of people involved in the passing game. And when you can add another dimension to an offense that has Derrick Henry, I think we have a lot of boxes to check off in terms of green lights. We have a guy who can throw it on the field. We have a guy who can open it up in turn for Derrick Henry. So I know I'm talking more about Joshua Dobbs than I am Ryan Tannehill, but I think if Tennessee can win this game, Joshua Dobbs has the starting quarterback spot. And I think even if Tennessee loses this game and the offense looks okay, there's not much to work with Ryan Tannehill. He took a huge step back this year. Definitely doesn't have a secure job anymore. I think he was a backup fantasy quarterback even last year. But this year he's losing his job. Joshua Dobbs looks really good. He's produced well. And again, we only saw one game, and it's kind of the Jared Stidham argument as well. Did this person do well because there's no film on them? You're not watching their film in practice and at least being able to get a whole lot out of it. So we'll see. The team has a full week to prepare for him. We'll see what Joshua Dobbs does in essentially a playoff game. But I think that Ryan Tannehill's job, because now we've had an experiment with two different quarterbacks, and yes, he got hurt for a bit, but there were times where he was replaced and he wasn't hurt. I think because there's two different quarterbacks going at Ryan Tannehill for his job, we can't say that he has a secure job. And I would say it's fair to put him below Russell Wilson because Wilson's locked into a contract. And Derek Carr, I feel like it's 50-50 right now. We got to see how Stidham does this week, but it's at the very least an open quarterback competition from my understanding. Let's go Sam Darnold. I've seen good things out of him in stretches, so we're going to put him mid-tier D. Not sure it's his job yet, but he's done well. We got to see if the Panthers go out and draft somebody. I feel like they've had a quarterback roulette. There was Mayfield for a bit, P.J. Walker. Cam Newton came back for a bit last year. Now it's Sam Darnold again, I feel like for the third time. He's had another nice stretch. This team did blow a pretty significant lead. Significant in the idea that the division was on the line. I mean, it wasn't a huge lead. It was 10. It was a couple possessions. But I do think that Sam Darnold is on a team that doesn't give him a whole lot to work with. It's pretty much DJ Moore, Deontay Foreman, Chuba Hubbard, and that's about it. Tommy Tremble's had some good stretches, but the offense has a lot of holes. So we're going to give Sam Darnold the benefit of the doubt, but it is a short stretch of good performance. I feel like this could be a case scenario where teams don't have a lot of film on him. As of recent, you've got film on him as of late, but they're constantly working on him. Each quarterback coach kind of sees him as a project and works with him as they can. We're going to put Sam Darnold mid-D. I think I'm not giving up on him, but we're not sure it's his job yet. He's looked good the last couple games. I will give him that. Aaron Rodgers. No Devontae Adams. We're going to put him there. We're going to put Aaron Rodgers low tier B. You know, Allen Lazard has looked great. He's got a couple exciting rookies in Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, who's had a great second half. He'll definitely be an interesting one in our wide receiver rankings. How much do we believe in him going forward? Guy named Devontae Adams had drop issues his rookie year, and he turned out pretty well. So Christian Watson's a different player, obviously more of a deep ball target, speed utilization, that type of thing. But we'll see how he develops. Aaron Rodgers, still a Hall of Fame quarterback, still able to use the tools around him pretty well. He does have the most interceptions that he's had since Green Bay won the Super Bowl. And now he's got the Super Bowl cut. And the last time they were the final seed in the playoffs, they won. So lots of coincidences there. I think Rodgers will be okay. I would shoot him down significantly lower if he were to not give an answer on if he would be playing with Green Bay next year. And that usually happens. He usually shows up to camp kind of late, and then we go from there. But he doesn't show up to camp late, but just kind of announces things late. Shows up to camp and goes from there. The summer is usually kind of a limbo in terms of whether or not we know Aaron Rodgers will be playing football again. And that's, he's taking it day by day. So all power to him. We're going to assume Rodgers plays next year, and we're going to put him in the B tier. We're going to put him right there. Okay. Again, if you're just joining, my name is Corey. This is Armchair Athletes. We are ranking quarterbacks in the order of how we would draft them going into next year. If you see Drew Lock, it's actually Geno Smith. This is just not an updated list. So let's go. We've got 11 more. This one's pretty obvious to me. Sorry, I couldn't stretch all the way up to the top. Joey B is going to be in the S tier. One of the better wide receiving cores, but he's also just one of the best talents that we've seen in a while. He was the number 1 overall pick a couple years ago, and he's living up to it. Injuries were an issue. I feel like a lot of people were worried after that first year. Gets hurt, gets tackled hard by Chase Young, and then not long after ends up being hurt. ACL, all that stuff. Takes his team to a Super Bowl in his sophomore year campaign last year. He's got one of the best, if not the best, trifectas in the league. He's got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. Hayden Hurst has emerged as what I would say is a top 15 tight end because he's being utilized more. So I'll speak on fantasy for that too, as long as he's healthy. Checks off the availability third of things. I think that Joey B is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And he's a volume passer as well. He's going to get you over 4,000 yards. Matter of fact, he's done it again. If he stays healthy, and he has stayed healthy, he does phenomenal. He's got a great offense. He's got Joe Mixon, who took a step forward this year, had an all-time fantasy performance that reinforces the play action and the passing game as a whole. One of the most accurate passers in the league. He really checks off all the boxes. 69% completion percentage. 4,200 passing yards again. 34 touchdowns for the second straight year. He's got 12 picks instead of 14. 81 touchdowns, 31 picks. Hasn't even played a full 3 years yet. Going on another playoff run. This guy's, and I mentioned the playoff run because he's definitely locked into this team. You know, big extension, all that's going to happen. All that is happening. I think Joey B is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. One of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. He throws the ball down the field well as well. If we look at his yards per attempt, he's sitting at 7.9. He had 8.9 last year. That's what Tua is averaging this year. He's got the confidence to chuck it deep. He's got the rapport with Jamar Chase. I love Joe Burrow. Johnny D says Joey Burr. Joey Burrow. I love Joe Burrow. Obviously, when we talk about longevity, we don't have to worry about age or anything. He's going into year 4. Joe Burrow is a great talent. This is going to be Andy Dalton, pretty much, or Jameis Winston. I don't know. I just don't know. They start Andy Dalton long term. We'll do Jameis. He's the younger one. First overall pick out of Florida State in 2015. Let's put him somewhere in there. We just don't know. He came back from injury, and Andy Dalton just never left the field. The Saints didn't look horrible. I mean, Chris Olave looked like he was the only one out there who was able to stay healthy and produce for this team. Alvin Kamara was in and out, had the off-field issues. We don't really know what we're getting with Jameis Winston. We just know he doesn't have a secure job, and I'll kind of just leave it at that. Jimmy G, we're going to go Brock Purdy instead because, you know what we'll do? We'll just do whoever's job it is because you have 3 really interesting scenarios, and we'll put them right here. Middle C tier, mid to high C tier. We have 3 really interesting scenarios. We have Trey Lance, who was the number 3 overall pick in last year's draft. It was Trevor Lawrence, working out pretty well. Zach Wilson, not so much. Trey Lance hasn't been on the field. He got hurt in week 1 against the Bears in that rainy game in Chicago. We don't know what the 49ers are going to go with. Here's my hot take. It's a defensive coordinator connection, but I could see Jimmy Garoppolo going to the Jets with Robert Saleh taking over there. Trey Lance, I feel like they might ride it out. I don't know, because Brock Purdy is a rookie. Mr. Irrelevant turned relevant. 10 touchdowns, 4 picks in 5 games. Undefeated. If this team goes on a Super Bowl run, what do you do? I think you have to stick with Purdy, and then Lance just sits and learns, and you try and get some trade value out of him, but there's not much on tape. You just know he's a good raw talent. He's a project that we haven't seen worked on much because we haven't seen him in game. So we'll put him right there in the middle because I feel like we don't know what's going on in San Francisco right now. So we'll just put insert 49ers quarterback here because we know someone's going to be there. We just don't know who it is. But we know it's a great running game, one of the best running games in the entire league because you have a two-way back in Christian McCaffrey, because you have an involved wide receiver or wide back in Deebo Samuel. It's going to set up the pass well. Brandon Ayuk has really taken another step forward this year. They've got a great thing going on there, and I think Kyle Shanahan has a phenomenal team, but we don't know who's going to be under center. Matt Ryan, E. This was supposed to be a playoff team. Jonathan Taylor was coming off one of the best running seasons that we have seen of any back. You know, people were starting to compare him to Derrick Henry, which I felt like was way too much because we were working off a 1-year sample size, and Derrick Henry's put up 4 or 5 amazing years. We've had MVP debates about him. People were starting to make that debate about Jonathan Taylor last year. Takes a significant step back this year, has injury issues, offensive line doesn't look good. Matt Ryan leads the leagues or was among the leaders in the league for picks. Sam Ehlinger comes in. There's a lot going on in Indianapolis right now. Frank Reich gets fired, so now it's Jeff Saturday's team. We'll see if he's the long-term coach or if he just sticks with the interim spot. And they keep looking for someone. I'm not really sure what's going to happen there. It looks like Indianapolis just blew everything up. Go Tom next? We'll go Tom next. Matt Ryan turned the ball over a ton, was sacked a ton, and I thought that was going to be it. I'm like, oh, he was putting up decent numbers in Atlanta, and Atlanta had a horrible offensive line. Watch the Atlanta versus New England game from last season. Dude got sacked so many times. Matt Ryan gave up a 33-point lead. F tier. You want to put him in F tier? Let's put him in F tier. That defense gave up a 33-point lead, but Matt Ryan rolled over and stopped driving the ball about 6 times in a row. You just had a bad feeling once the Vikings put that second touchdown together. You're like, oh, it's 33-14, and they got over a quarter to work with. This is a little scary, or roughly a quarter to work with. Yeah, Matt Ryan, 14 touchdowns, 13 picks, 4-7-1 with him at the helm. I mean, the Colts haven't won a game without him, but that's horrible. Horrible production. Horrible season. No support in the running end. Fantasy-wise, you should not touch Matt Ryan. He's high F tier. Dylan, you convinced me. 7 left. We'll go with Tampa Tom next. We'll put him low B tier. He's got 2 great wide receivers to utilize. Is Taysom Hill on the honorable mention tier? We could put Taysom, yeah, as a quarterback, right? We'll put him on the honorable mention tier, which would probably be somewhere between like D and E. Taysom just doesn't have enough consistent starts, and that's just more so the management decisions by the Saints. But good to see you in the chat, Brian. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I think Taysom Hill's just kind of slotted in there. But Tampa Tom, we're going to go low B tier. He's got Chris Godwin. He's got Mike Evans. K-Dot, and it's kind of taken off as well. He was more of a dump-off quarterback this year, really utilizing Leonard Fournette and then Rachaad White once Rachaad White started to take over the running back 1 spot. And they're still kind of going back and forth a little bit. Will be interesting to see if we see playoff Lenny or playoff Rachaad or a mix of both. Probably option C. Tom Brady just didn't light up the scoreboard this year. I mean, he was still going to get you 12, 13, 14, but until that 37-point performance, which is really the only reason I'm willing to put him in B, we did not see much from Tom this year. He still looks okay on paper, to say the very least. 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He's just not throwing a lot of touchdowns, in all honesty. Other than that 2019 season, this is the worst pace he has been on for touchdowns since 2013. Before that, 2006. This is like a bottom 5 season for Tom Brady, but it's for Tom Brady. So he's still doing phenomenal in terms of winning football games. Still a decent volume passer. Obviously, he's up at 4,600 yards, and that's why I'm keeping him up here because you have a guy who's going to throw for a ton of yards. 6.4 yards per attempt. That is nearly a career low. He threw for 6.3 way back in 2002, so we're stretching back 2 decades. But he's got a great supporting cast around him. If Tom keeps playing, which he's not showing any real signs of retiring, he kind of ditched his family and chose football over them, and that's not the whole story, but he's choosing football. That's his priority. If he plays another year, I'm keeping Tom in my top 12, top 15 fringe, because he did take a step back this year. We didn't see as many passing touchdowns. It was more of a run-heavy attack, even though the Bucs could not run the ball. But we'll do that. 6 left. Let's go Justin Fields. Justin Fields is going to go right behind it. This is Geno Smith, not Drew Lock. Justin Fields had a phenomenal year. 25 total touchdowns, over 1,000 yards rushing. The guy had, let me see what I have here for him. 7 games with 80-plus rushing yards. With Tom, do you see him having a comeback? I'm ashamed to say I picked him as my first QB. Dumped him not long after. Don't be ashamed. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He had many great seasons. And when the dude's throwing for over 5,000 yards, almost year in and year out, that's kind of something you want to go for. So I don't blame you at all for that. Not over 5,000. I'm sorry, over 4,000. But he threw for 5,300 last year. It happens, Brian. A lot of people did the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. And we just didn't see the production we thought we were going to see out of him. I thought Rodgers would take a step back because he lost one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in the game at that time. And Devontae Adams. You can make the debate between him and Justin Jefferson now, and Tyreek Hill as well. I think we just have to understand that Tom Brady's probably a backup fantasy quarterback because it's a lot more dump-offs. We're not seeing... we saw some deep passes with Mike Evans in that last game against the Panthers with the division on the line. He still got it in him. It's just not as much in that Todd Bowles game plan right now. It's more of a dink and dunk offense. That's how they've made it work. Finding those holes in the defense, shallow. I mean, teams are playing like cover 4, cover 6 on them because they're scared of Mike Evans deep, and that's kind of just how they're adjusting. And that's one of many reasons they're doing that. And then Deshaun Watson locked into a big contract, so we have to put him above these. We'll go right here. Put him above Stafford because of his running ability. We haven't seen the man play football in 2 years, but we know he's locked into a contract, and we know he has he's a dual threat quarterback. He has Amari Cooper. He's got Jarvis Landry, who's got more in the tank than I think a lot of people thought. He's got Donovan Peoples-Jones. David Njoku can be a top 10 tight end if he stays healthy. Nick Chubb is a top 3 running back, so that really builds the play action, and he can go out and catch some as well. Kareem Hunt took a step back this year, but he's a great pass-catching back. There's a lot of dimensions to that offense. Offensive line holds up, and he should do well, but we haven't seen the man play consistent football in 2 years. I'm not going to base my opinion off a couple of games. We'll just put it that way. Mac Jones, it was almost the Bailey Zappi show until a little bit ago. We'll put him right behind Deshaun. Took a significant step back this year. Had a tough training camp. Yeah, not a whole lot of people riding the Mac Jones train. I think the job is his, but he's going to have to work a little harder for his extension, to say the very least. I would say Mac Jones' job is safe, but it is a run-heavy offense. It's kind of similar to New England, or to Tampa Bay. I'm sorry, I'm just calling Tom Brady New England. How could you not? He was with them for 20 years. Run-heavy offense, but you're also, I'm sorry, not run-heavy. Running backs are heavily involved in this offense, because Tampa Bay actually throws the ball more than almost anybody in the league. Lots of dump-offs to Ramondre Stevenson. Damian Harris hasn't been as healthy, so we haven't seen as many single-back formations, that type of thing. It's been more dump-offs to Ramondre out wide. That's kind of how, that's been Mac Jones' bread and butter, but it hasn't looked too good on throws down the field, to say the very least. And then we've got Jalen Hurts. I mean, this could go either way. We'll put him up here. We'll have 4 S tiers. Jalen Hurts, a great dual threat quarterback who's really shown that he can throw the ball in the field more. Obviously, Howie Roseman goes out and gets him a top 10 wide receiver in A.J. Brown. That helps him a ton. He has been hurt the last 2 weeks. Might be out this week as well. Looks like he's going to play. So, question is, is he going to be able to last through the whole game? Shoulder, he's listed as questionable against the Giants. And they don't have that seed locked up yet, so we'll have to see what happens there. But Jalen Hurts is going to get you a guaranteed 18, 20 points just because of his production on the ground as well. One of the better quarterbacks in terms of just scoring on the ground. He's got 26 rushing touchdowns the last 3 years, 23 in the last 2 years, 44 through the air. You do the math, he's got 80 touchdowns in the last 3 years. 70, I'm sorry. He threw just 5 picks this year, 3,500 through the air, 700 on the ground. The guy's doing it all. He's extremely efficient. 8.2 yards a carry, that's a career high. Rushes for 5 yards a carry, that's extremely efficient as well. Jalen Hurts is going to get the job done for you if you're an Eagles fan, and he's going to do the same thing for fantasy as well. Lamar Jackson, in his prove-it year, we're going to go low B, mid B. Put him right here. Right here. Lamar Jackson. He reinvented what it was like to be a dual threat quarterback again. He's the best we've seen at it since Michael Vick. Randall Cunningham's in there as well, a couple other honorable mentions. I think that Lamar Jackson, the thing with him is we don't know where he's going to play football next year. The Ravens offered him something. He denied it. He pulled a move that a lot of athletes will do. They want to try and earn more money by having a good year. He's had a decent year. Tyler Huntley has come in, and the Ravens have gone on a little bit of a skid, but they're still going to make the playoffs. They're in. So Lamar Jackson doesn't have a whole lot of weapons out wide. It's really built on the run and dumping it out. He's got one of the best tight ends in the game in Mark Andrews. If we look at Lamar this year, he's got the 2019 MVP locked up as well. Lamar's phenomenal. I'm going to say Lamar is fringe top 10 as just a regular quarterback. Fantasy, he's around there as well. You see we got him at 12. I would say that's a pretty good spot. I would actually put him above Aaron Rodgers, because the extra rushing yards that we're getting out of Lamar is it's more than enough to make up for Aaron Rodgers is kind of establishing connections with Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and it's been a rocky road to say the very least. But Lamar Jackson needs to stay healthy, I would say. Played 12 games last year, 12 games this year. Missed a game each in 2019, 2020. It's not a major issue yet, but it's something I would keep my eye on. But 101 passing touchdowns through 5 years, just 38 interceptions, so nearly a 3-to-1 ratio there. And then, I mean, it's a pretty obvious statement, but Lamar Jackson adds a whole other dimension on the ground. Lamar, one of the best rushing quarterbacks that we have ever seen. 4,437 rushing yards, 24 touchdowns through 4 years, a career 6.1 yard per carry rusher. Lamar Jackson's one of the best running quarterbacks we've seen, and it's going to help us a lot in fantasy too. You obviously get way more points on the ground than you do through the air. And last but certainly not least, Jared Goff. Jared Goff is healthy. Jared Goff has looked phenomenal. 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He's utilizing Amon St. Brown, who can be a top 10 quarterback in this league if he stays healthy. Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond. We haven't even seen the extent of Jameson Williams yet. We're going to get to see a healthy Jameson Williams next year, knock on wood. DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. It's been an interesting dynamic. Obviously, the guys are, keeping it professional. They enjoy each other, but from a fantasy usage standpoint, we're really seeing more running backs by committee. That has not stagnated Jared Goff's productivity at all. He's utilizing DeAndre Swift out in the pass. He's utilizing, maybe I'll kick him down a little bit. And Dylan's saying B tier. He's utilizing DeAndre Swift. Oh yeah, I have him in B tier. I think he's on the field and Tua is not. We got one good year out of Jared Goff. He didn't do great last year. I mean, the Rams. You could tell I'm tired. The Lions defense has been stomped all over, but Jared Goff being above Tua makes sense to me. Being above Lamar makes sense to me because we don't know where Lamar is going to be. Being above A-Rod makes sense to me because he's got a little more rapport with this wide receiving core. Yes, it's year 2 in Detroit. Most of the guys have stuck it through so far. It's year 2 in Detroit for Amon St. Brown as well, and he's exploded. Establishing Brock Wright, looking like a pretty solid tight end. He's not getting too many targets until a couple weeks ago, and then he starts to explode for a few touchdowns. Jared Goff's making a home for himself, working for Dan Campbell. I think he's having a lot of fun. Detroit's got a shot at the playoffs. So this is my tier. This was my 2023 fantasy quarterback tier rankings list. Let me know, folks, anything you disagree with, anybody you were shocked about this year, anybody you would move to another category, and why. I love to interact with all of you. And I love that so many of you were able to join this live stream and talk to me today. So I do appreciate all of you. I appreciate all of the support. We're at 382 subscribers, which still wows me. We were in the low 100s just a couple months ago when I revived this channel. So your continued support, every like, every W list. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Every like, every view, every comment as you guys are continuing to come in here and interact with me, every subscription, every share. Great list. We'll have to screenshot this. You go right ahead and screenshot it, man. I'll put it back on the screen here for you. I'll smile for you and everything. But I appreciate all the interaction from you guys. I will be doing a couple live streams at least a week. I'm going to do some more just recorded videos for different biggest disappointments, biggest letdowns, biggest surprises in a good way, contract extensions we need to worry about. I'll do a mock draft for the actual NFL, and then I'll do some fantasy mock drafts as well. I will introduce best ball drafts to you guys. Alex has a quick question before we get out of here, of course. Quick running back question. Do you think Jamal Williams will have a solid game this weekend? They're playing for everything right now on the Packers. They're a decent run blocking. They're decent at stopping the run, to say the very least. Jamal Williams needs red zone touches, and I think DeAndre Swift is slowly getting utilized more. I think it's a toss-up between him and Swift. Jamal Williams will have a solid game if he has a touchdown, if he can't get in the end zone. I think he's starting to peter out a little bit. He's not getting the red zone touches that we saw him getting before. So, it's tough to say, Alex. I would take about 12 to 15 running backs over Jamal Williams at the very least, just because I don't know if the usage is there anymore. We're seeing it down in comparison to years past, but it's really a toss-up for sure. But I do appreciate all of you. If you have any questions at all, pop them in this video, pop them in the YouTube Shorts. I made it a goal as my New Year's resolution. I am doing an average of 2 YouTube Shorts a day. Folks, I also put a poll out on the channel asking you guys, do you want this to strictly be a fantasy football channel, or do you want me to branch out and do different aspects of the NFL? Like I just said, I'm planning on maybe doing an NFL mock draft, looking at different contracts, free agency projections for guys like Orlando Brown. Obviously, offensive linemen don't have anything to do with fantasy, at least directly, unless you're in some weird extensive sleeper league. But make sure you answer that poll. It's in the communities tab on this channel. Make sure you tell your friends, your family. We're almost at 400 subscribers. The recent support means a ton to me. But with that, I think I'm going to step off. I hope all of you have a great night. I'm Corey. This is Armchair Athletes, and I will see you on the next live stream.